Viewers, first up, we have some big breaking news coming in. Donald Trump has put out a social media post on Truth Social. He says, United States of America has successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader. Trump has said President Nicolás Maduro, who has been along with his wife, has been captured and flown out of the country. And this operation was done in conjunction with U.S. law enforcement. This is the latest breaking news that we are tracking. Donald Trump has confirmed that Nicolás Maduro, the president of Venezuela, has now been captured along with his wife, and they have been flown out of the country. To give us more insights and to help us understand what the situation is and what is ahead for Venezuela, we have our editor Kartikeya Sharma joining us live on this broadcast. Kartikeya, tell us what is exactly happening in Venezuela and what happens from here on after Maduro's capture by the US.
I think it's the breaking news of the century. I think it's something as important as Iraq, because a head of a state has been captured by another state. In Iraq, which was a multi-nation war against Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein was not captured. There were local forces who captured Saddam Hussein. There was a trial. But the United States of America has captured Maduro, and Donald Trump is going to hold a press conference. This entire attack has taken place on the ground that Maduro was entirely responsible for flooding American streets with fentanyl and drugs. But the baseline is that the Maduro was also responsible for supplying cheap oil to Russia and China. Now, in that case, if Maduro is captured, his wife captured, flown out of Venezuela, I don't know what sort of defense paraphernalia which Venezuela had. Secondly, it's a rough, I would say it's a very crude display of the Monroe Doctrine. It's an imperial doctrine. This is American imperialism in display. You have captured another head of state. There is no rule-based order. I mean, I have no sympathies for Maduro. Maduro is a despot himself. He has not allowed democracy to take root in Venezuela. But for Maduro to be captured by the United States of America on the pretext of, supplying drugs and not doing enough. Tomorrow they can strike Iran and say that we don't want Ayatollah Khamenei there because Ayatollah Khamenei is not allowing the protest to take place. So this sort of an intervention which the world is witnessing is an era of great instability. Russians are in Ukraine. Tomorrow, if China attacks Taiwan and says, this is our sphere of influence, and what are you going to do? Then what are you going to do? Which means that the world again is getting divided into spheres of influence. This is like going back to the imperial times. And look at these night operations which have taken place in Venezuela. And this happened when the Chinese delegation was there. So the entire operation happened in presence of Chinese delegation. It means that they were in their embassy when Maduro was attacked, when senior Chinese presence was in Venezuela. So Americans have shown who's the boss in this part of the world. It's a very big signal that has gone out, and the Chinese were there. So I don't think that this is going to go down very well. People can go to United Nations and complain, but it doesn't make a difference. United Nations doesn't count for much. But for Maduro to be captured in the attack that has taken place is mind-boggling, because you have lifted up the family of the first family of a country which is thousands of miles away. It's like India doing an operation in Fiji, saying that they are against Indian interest. So this is unprecedented. This is not even what this is something like what Israel did in Lebanon, what Israel did in Fordo with Americans. So with Trump, this sort of transactional diplomacy and this sort of military intervention is very, very dangerous, Deepak. I mean to say it's happening far away, but it has tremendous consequence for the world.
So this means that Trump has basically destabilized Venezuela completely. So what happens next?
I won't use the word destabilized completely. I would say that they're trying a regime change. When I use the word regime change, because you see, one has to remember that the woman who got the Nobel Peace Prize is from Venezuela. And Trump, Trump, and she said, it's because of the Trump I got the Peace Prize. And she was exiled from Venezuela by Maduro. So Maduro himself has a very dictatorial history, but that's another thing. That's another thing. I'm not surprised by the regime change that is taking place. The Americans have always done it. Salvador Allende in Chile in 1970s was killed by CIA. And then Pinochet came to power and he ruled Chile for the next 40 years. So the Americans have been doing it, whether it's Indonesia, whether it's Suharno, whether it's Sukarno, or whether it's the killing of Mossadegh in Iran. and then after that the Raza dynasty came over because the Americans were concerned about their oil. So the Americans were also involved there. So the lines which have been drawn in the modern world today is because of the British, American and the French imperialism. The countries like Syria, countries like Jordan, countries like Iraq, they were born out of the map of Ottoman Empire when the entire empire collapsed during the First World War. But the issue here is that this was a unilateral action. One country has gone and actually it's like India doing a unilateral action in its neighborhood and capturing the head of the state. I mean, say America has just displayed its complete power in South America, saying that no one gets to intervene there. But my question is slightly different. If the same rules gets to be applied on Taiwan, if the Russians start applying the same rule on Latvia, Belarus, they have done it in Ukraine, then what will happen? Israel does that in Gaza, Israel is doing it in Lebanon, Israel is doing it in the border areas of Iran. Then you have Syria, then you really have a problem on your hand. Then where does the buck stop? Because ultimately, if the only interest which holds you together is your national interest, then the rule-based order collapses.
That's right, Karthikeyan. How do you expect the world to respond in the face of, Maduro's capture by the US?
I don't think the world is going to say anything. The response of the world is going to be muted. America is a superpower, though the Chinese are very close to them in terms of economy. But the ability of the Americans to strike anywhere, or the ability of the Americans to organize a strike, it's actually a display of the raw American power. You see, who could have organized an invasion like that? Local media was reporting boots on the ground. I think this must have been the boots on the ground. If we can play those visuals in the full screen, we will be able to show our viewers better. If we can play the visuals of the the strikes that had taken place today, then our viewers will be able to understand what was happening. This is how Americans were striking the Venezuelan countryside entire night. They hit 4 cities there, not one. They hit Caracas, they hit Guaira, they hit 2 other cities. We'll show it on the map. We're going to show you the map. The 4 cities, there's an American deployment. They had deployed Gerald Ford there. This is the map. These are the 4 cities which the American had actually hit in Venezuela. 4 cities. They had hit 4 cities.
But Karthikeyan, do you think Maduro was expecting, or this is an unexpected attack? Time and again, Donald Trump had warned what he could do and what Maduro was staring at. But Maduro, do you think that he probably didn't really pay heed to Donald Trump's threats?
I think Maduro felt that he will be able to get away. And I think Maduro also felt that Americans will bomb them, but they will lose appetite. And Maduro also felt that Americans will not deploy boots on the ground. And I think he did not have the intelligence that he will be captured. I think that's the bottom line. Maduro was thinking that this is going to be Iran, or this is going to be maybe some sort of a longish version of Iraq or Afghanistan. He will have to take hits, but then Americans will lose interest. He was, I think, thinking of that. But Americans wanted him. They didn't come for the state. They have actually captured a head of a state. That's why it's a big story.
That's right. And let me also once again read what Donald Trump has posted on Truth Social. He has said, the United States of America has successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, President Nicolás Maduro, who has been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. And this operation was done in conjunction with the US law enforcement, and details to follow. There will be a news conference today at 11 a.m. That is the local time in the United States at Mar-a-Lago. So what can we expect from here on, Karthikeyan?
I would say that, Americans are not going to let go of the entire Venezuelan operation. Americans are also not going to let go of what happens to Maduro. You have to understand that what has America done? America has actually gone out and captured a head of state. You see, it's not capturing a drug lord. They captured El Chapo, but the Mexicans were involved. Americans went and killed Osama bin Laden in Pakistan, but Osama bin Laden was responsible for bringing down the Twin Towers and Pentagon. So, it was a declared terrorist. But what is important here is, Americans have started to declare people unilaterally as terrorists or threat against the American interests. You know, the killing of the Qasem Soleimani, how did they kill Qasem Soleimani in Iraq 6 years ago? Qasem Soleimani was designated as a terrorist. IRG was designated as a terrorist organization. And under their law, Americans can go and kill anyone if you designate someone a terrorist or terrorist organization. That is why they could kill a sitting Iranian general, head of Quds forces in Iraq, because they designated him. Now the issue is, if tomorrow India starts designating someone as terrorist and we bump them off, we know what has happened in Canada when we bumped off two small little, drug lords there. You know, the entire American establishment and the Canadians were up in arms. So it's an unequal world. You know, this is telling us that we are dealing with the unequal world. This is an unequal world, and that's what we are dealing with.
And Donald Trump has been acting unilaterally. He has no regard for United Nations. No UNSC meetings will make a difference. And in fact, we also have Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, who's joining us on this live broadcast. Lieutenant General, a very good afternoon to you. Maduro has been captured. How do you see the situation?
Definitely, that is what the Americans have been wanting it for a long, long time. They would have much liked Maduro to leave the country, and the intention was to depose him, because they already have the Nobel Peace Prize winner now as the opposition candidate, whom they would much like to install, because she thanked Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize that she got. So in that context, as you see, hopefully the Venezuelans must reconcile. If they do not, then there is going to be a big, huge problem for the Americans. But since the opposition leader, a Nobel Peace Prize winner, seems also to have some kind of a following in Venezuela, I'm sure she's the candidate who would now be nominated as the president, one. Secondly, Colombia does not recognize Venezuela, but they have the National Liberation Army going from Venezuela to Colombia, porous border, and almost 3 million of these refugees of Venezuela in Colombia.
General Kulkarni, Karthikeya, you know, I have a twofold question, sir. Sorry, I'm interrupting you, sir. My question is very simple, sir. You know, if Russians can do Venezuela, if Russians can do Ukraine, American can do Venezuela, what prevents Chinese from doing a Taiwan, sir? I mean to say, they have captured a head of a state. I'm not saying that they have not done it. They have, Allende they killed, Mossadegh they bumped off. Americans have been doing regime change, either killing the head of the state or by allowing protests to take over, which we have seen in Nepal and Bangladesh, the coups they organized. But this time around, they have actually flown out with Maduro and Maduro's wife. You know, I think these guys were waiting for American interest to wane away, but they came captured. I mean, sir, what is it telling us? What is it telling the world? This raw display of power. I have no sympathy for Maduro, who is a despot or a drug supplier, but still a head of a state, general.
Karthikeya, my way or highway is our way. For them, it is only their way. And they will do everything possible to see that their backwaters, and in no way either they would allow the Chinese to be there, or the Russians be there, or for that matter, anybody.